Hello, everybody. Welcome to our town hall on this Wednesday. I almost said Thursday, on this Wednesday. Mastering your time, tactics to declutter your daily routine and lead efficiently with Andrew Mellen. We'll take a few minutes so you guys can get loaded in, and then we will go from there. And also just drop a hello in the chat so we know where you're coming from and we can say hello to you.
Hey,
Hi,
Lynn.
Ben from Kentucky. Noel in Canada. Hi, Nicole. How are you? Tracy.
Hey, and everyone, if you care to, right, you can in the pull down menu you can select instead of hosts and panelists. It's great that you're talking to us, but if you pull it down, you can actually select everyone, and then you're talking to everyone in the room.
The
So
whole world.
yeah,
Hey,
so
Mindy.
so we have Dallas in the house. We've got hey Wendy, it's good to see you. Hyatt, Florida's in the house. Mirabeau, San Diego, lovely. Philly's in the house, Vancouver. Oh, Texas Hill Country's here.
We always have a nice mix of people coming through, Andrew, from all over the world, actually. There's Margaret, Laura,
Hey,
who's
Margaret,
a great person.
in my hometown.
Awesome.
Wisconsin's in the house. Dayton's in the house. My assistant is in Dayton.
Nice.
Hey,
Nice.
Melissa
I've
in
never
New
been to
Jersey.
Dayton. Never been to Dayton.
Nor have I. We've never met in person. My assistant, she's worked with me for almost 2 years, and it's we have a completely virtual relationship.
That's the modern world now, which I'm sure we're going to talk about these virtual relationships in our
Yes,
conversation today.
definitely.
Awesome. So, hello and welcome to our February iSpa Town Hall discussion. Thank you for joining us so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to say a special thank you to our sponsor for today, Spa Finder. They have been in business for over 30 years and are the world's best resource for well-being and self-care all year round. Spa Finder connects spas, salons, and independent practitioners with a wellness-minded audience. Their gift cards are sold in 40,000 retail locations, and over 4 million customers visit spafinder.com annually. Let them act as a customer acquisition tool and another stream of revenue for your business. So today, one lucky listener will win a $100 e-gift card at the end of today's session. It never expires. Exactly. And can
Woo.
be redeemed at thousands of locations. So be sure to stop by and visit Spy Finder in booth 816 at the iSpa conference in April, which is only 55 days away, y'all. Are you ready? I cannot wait to see you all in person. Lots of big hugs, selfies, all of that. So today's guest is Andrew Mellen, and he will be sharing his expertise during a day two knowledge builder session when we are in Phoenix. He is an internationally recognized productivity expert, trainer, author, and media personality. From directing actors on stage to directing people in their lives, Andrew Mellen just might be the organizational world's best kept secret. Andrew has presented at TEDx and South by Southwest and is the best-selling author of Unstuff Your Life, the most organized man in America's guide to moving and calling BS on busy. So today, I love that title, Andrew, by the way.
Thank
That's a
you.
great title. So today we're going to preview of a sneak peek of what's to come during Andrew's session at the 2024 iSpa conference. And then we'll dive into time management and how you as a spa leader can manage your time and team better, be more productive at work, and have a positive mindset. So Andrew, thank you so much for taking time to share your insights and expertise with us today.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here with you and with everybody else.
Thank you so much. So let's get right into it. And if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll work them in like we always do. So as I said, you're often referred to as the most organized man in America. So I
Yes.
want to know, how did you find your way into this niche? Because I know you have a theater background. So I want to know how you got into this little area of expertise that led you where you are today in your career.
Sure. 27 years ago, I was laid off from a theater that I was running in Seattle, Washington. And I got a gig co-producing an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center back east in DC. So one of our awardees was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I went to his office to get some photographs so I could put together a slide show for when he came to get his award.
Hmm.
In the process of being in his office, going through his files, they were a mess. Things were misfiled, mislabeled, things had been lent out and never returned. And after about 3 hours in his office, I pulled together probably 20 images to make this slideshow. While I was doing this work, his wife said to me, what's your story? Who are you? And I told her, I just got laid off from this theater. And she said, well, how would you like to organize our photographs for us? And this is Nobel Peace Prize winner. I mean, this is a man that I had read his books when I was in college. I get choked up every time I think about it. It's a very powerful conversation in their living room. And I said, it would be a tremendous honor. I would love to do that for you.
Hmm.
So we made a date for me to go to work when the award ceremony was over. I was moving back to New York, and we made a date, December 20th, 1996. The day before I was supposed to go to work, the phone rang. Their assistant called up. Something unexpected has happened. They've got to travel. Let's do it in January. We pick a date for January. January rolls around, the day before I'm supposed to go to work, phone rings. We push it to February. February, we push it to March. In March, they say, when we're ready to proceed, we'll get back in touch with you.
Hmm.
I never go to work for them. However, in those 4 months, I tell every living soul, I've got this amazing gig. I'm going to create a comprehensive photographic archive for a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And that led to a friend of mine referring me to her accountant who needed a filing system. I built it for her. And she worked with a lot of traveling performing artists. So people who, as you know, if you are anywhere for more than 4 or 5 weeks at a time, you have to file a non-resident return in that jurisdiction. Doesn't matter that you don't live there. They want a piece of your income because you made some money there. So I had to build this rather dynamic, robust filing system for the accountant. I did it. She started referring her clients to me. So people would show up literally with a duffel bag full of receipts saying, I haven't filed my taxes in 5 years. There's letters in this bag from the IRS. I'm freaked out. I do not want to go to jail and I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know how to start. Can you help me? So I
Yeah.
would organize their files. I'd put it in QuickBooks. I'd give it back to the accountant. The accountant would file their return and they would say, oh my God, you're amazing. You saved my life. And they would tell all their friends, you'll never believe it. I gave this guy a pile of garbage. He turned it into my tax returns. He's a genius. And they inevitably would say, who is this guy? I need somebody just like that. And that is how this practice began for me 27 years ago. Never on my radar did I think I was going to become the most organized man in America or become a professional organizer. It was, I mean, really, at that time, there were very few people working in this industry. And so it was one of those pivotal moments where instead of saying no, I said yes, and this is what happened.
It's so interesting that you say that because I think many people who are on this call right now who are talking to us and watching this and will watch this on the replay of this have come into the spa industry from other industries. And that moment of serendipity, I think really will resonate with the people who you're going to be speaking to today and at a conference. And it's a very beautiful story.
Thanks.
One thing that we have learned from talking to our membership is that time management is an issue. It comes up in all activity. We can't seem to figure it out. And so at this year's ISPA conference, you're going to be speaking to attendees about organizing our personal lives, which has a direct impact on our professional lives as well. So can you share a snippet of what the attendees can expect to take away from your session?
Sure. Uh, in the same way that I created the organizational triangle for organization, right? One home for everything, like with like, something in, something out. So one home for everything and like with like is how you get organized. Everything has one home, only one home. All like objects live together, not most of them, but all of them. So if you do those two things, you will get organized. Now, you might still need to declutter because you have more than you need, but you will know where everything is and all of its siblings will be together. And then you just stay organized by something in, something out. It just means that, oh, it looks like I've frozen there for a second.
I think you froze for just a minute.
Yeah. Um, Give me just a second here. Um, crud.
The
Uh,
world of technology, which we're going to talk
yeah,
about in just a minute.
exactly. I wonder, you can still hear me, but you can't see me.
We can still hear you perfectly.
Right. Do you want me to leave and come back?
Alexandra, what do you recommend that we do? Should he bounce back in or should we keep going? I say
Uh,
we, yes, Alexandra, go ahead.
Andrew, you can bounce out and then come back in.
Okay, I'll be right back.
So I see Jill Carlin says it, I guess when we were talking about Jill, about his background being very diverse from a spa hotel background and leading him into spa or his work is very similar to what we all have experienced. I know, Jill, you have a major singing background. So again, you take your art and your experience and you bring it to this world, which I think makes what we do so dynamic and makes what we produce so dynamic, I think. So we're gonna wait and see.
Yeah, I'm
Laura
just trying to
Parsons
join on
says,
my mobile phone if I can. If I can
oh,
just switch
perfect,
over to the oh crud.
perfect. And I love your comment, Laura Parsons, that so many of us come into the industry in the most unique ways. We all have a story. Yes, yes. Thank you, Jill. But we do all have a story. And so we're gonna wait on Andrew to get back in, and we're gonna see if the phone works. Fingers crossed that the phone is going to work. I'm still kind of in shock that we're only 55 days away from conference. Um, I wish you guys could understand the amount of work that our headquarters team does to get ready for this conference. Um, I do too, Wendy. She says she loves Andrew's work. Who doesn't have too much stuff? And he wrote a great, if you guys go on his website, he wrote a great article in his blog about the idea of stuff and why we hold on to stuff in our lives, which is, he says that it's a value system issue about the idea of holding on to things. Um, Benisa Hogan is going to be at conference for the first time in Phoenix. We love that. We can't wait to see you. Benisa, I hope I'm saying your name right. And they're going to be, so, look out for our emails. There are going to be some pre-conference calls for all of our new attendees to get up to speed on how to have the best Phoenix experience possible, which is going to be great. Andrew's website, I will have Alexandra drop his website into the chat. It is a beautiful website. You can see the full breadth of his story and his work there. Andrew, we've got that. Ashley, you haven't bought your tickets yet. What are you waiting for? It's not cheap to fly anymore, Ashley, so don't put it off too long. I will be driving from sunny Southern California to get there. So Ashley, please get on those flights being purchased. We appreciate that. Oh, she does wrong chat. How many webinars are you on right now, Ashley? That's the question. But anyway, we just dropped it. His website is www.andrewmellen, Mellen, andrewmellen.com. His blogs are there, podcasts are there, his story is there. So you'll find his work there. So that's all very exciting. Yarlin, I look forward to so Yarlin, we're going to miss you in Phoenix. So we'll see you then at the Broadmoor in Colorado in 2025. So I was saying, I hope you guys, you don't get to see, I think Lynn is watching. It'd be a great sort of reality show to sort of show what happens to get conference up and running and ready. And this year we have a shorter time between 2023's conference and 2024's conference. And so it's been a race to Phoenix, which is going to be great. And there are going to be some great speakers beyond Andrew. I love Wendy's statement here. Calling BS on busy is a great read. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There we go. We have Andrew back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, people have been going to your website. We put your website up so they can see your work there. But I was going to hop back in because you were talking about like for like
Yes.
in the organizing of your life, and we were there.
Right. So something in, something out. The third leg of the triangle is how we stay organized. Something new comes in, something old goes out. If you have 150 pairs of shoes, you can have, there's no number that says you're only allowed to have so many things. If anybody tries to tell you that there's a number, they're making it up. There is no number. You can have as much as you have space for. If you don't have enough room for it, you either have too many things or not enough space. You can move to a larger facility, or you can let go of some things. It's space relations is it's pretty concrete. It's the same thing in time management. When we think about time management, it's math. It's simple math. 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 168 hours in a week. You can play games with yourself around the math, but it's just simple math. And then if you've got a story that says, oh, I'm not very good at math, right? Like I'm creative, but I'm not so good at math. This is dime store math. If you can buy a pack of chewing gum and count your change, you can do the math that I'm talking about. So there's a statistic that says the average adult tells 200 lies a day. This just might be one of yours, right? If you say, oh, I'm not good at math, it's a story, and you might get some juice out of it, but you just have to ask yourself in a quiet moment, how does that story serve you? I mean, we all have some real limitations and challenges. We are a finite manifestation possibly of infinite wisdom, infinite energy. And so there might be some limitations, but one of them isn't, counting to 60.
Right. Times 24 or times.
Exactly.
Right. So as we look at this idea of time management, and you've worked with some great companies, you've worked with the New York Mets, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, you really worked with people on this issue of time management. And I wonder if there are some common mistakes that people make in leadership when we're talking about improving their time management.
So when we think, it goes back to mindset, and it goes back to this idea of how you everything starts with the mind, right? So how you think about time, then how you feel about time. If you often go to a place where you are overwhelmed, you are stuck, and you stay there, failure breeds failure. Success breeds success. If you are in a state of overwhelm, chances are you are not going to make simple choices. You've got muddled thinking, and you're approaching it from I would say a compromised point of view. So whether you're dealing with your own time or you're trying to manage a team, if the mindset isn't there, if we're not leaning into glass half full thinking, if we're in that scarcity place where we're feeling the crunch, because there's a baseline that there will always be more to do than we have time to do. So good management is engaged in prioritizing and a degree of triage, dispassionate triage. Again, is instead of bringing the story to the loss, for everything you say no to, you're actually saying yes to something that matters more. So you can focus on what we're not doing or what we're missing out on, but then you're also really minimizing the power that's available to you when you're focusing on what you are doing, as if it's somehow the booby prize or the weird compromise, as opposed to it being an empowered choice that we are choosing to move in this direction and put our attention and our efforts, our resources into this rather than that. That's a powerful position to put yourself in, as opposed to we're in a corner, all of our choices suck, so let's just do the one that has the least negative consequences. Everything about that is unempowered. And as a leader, you also need to know that your floor is everybody else's ceiling. Where you let yourself off the hook is typically where everybody else will rise to. You'll have a few outliers who, because of their own inner accountability and motivation, are driven to excel. Those people should be brought into leadership roles because they have that thing that is intrinsic in them to excel and exceed expectations. But most people, right, if we think about the bell curve, there's 20% of them that are those kinds of people. 60 are in the middle who will do what is asked of them, no more. Hopefully no less, but no more. And there's 20% that if you babysat and spoon-fed them, they would still be contrary. Those people should probably leave your organization.
Right.
And then we want to move that 60% in the middle up to the 20% and then elevate that 20 top percent as high up into the organization as we can to give them more responsibility and more leadership opportunities, because in the sense of a rising tide lifts all boats, when everybody ups their game, everybody ups their game. And so it's just important to remember, one of those major distinctions really is where you let yourself off the hook. Everybody is watching you as a manager, as a leader. And wherever you are willing to say, oh, that's good enough, they will not exceed that. They are, whether you say it explicitly or they are just observing your behavior, they will take that as a clue and as a cue, and they will not push past that limit.
One thing that you just said is that the leader is sometimes in a state of overwhelm. Their mind is overwhelmed. There's too many choices. 18 things have to be done. What are some tactics that the leader can do to move their mind from the place of overwhelm to making strategic and smart decisions to move the organization forward?
Yeah, so we know the brain science tells us that in as few as 3 deep breaths, you can reset your central nervous system. I start all my presentations with 3 focused breaths. So often I think when we are in that state of overwhelm, when we're in fight or flight, depending on how you're wired as a human, either way, the choice is not going to serve you. In those moments, pausing, rebooting, just like you would reboot your phone, just like I rebooted my computer, right? You know, when we lost the connection. I could be in the agitation of, oh crap, we're in this session, it's live, this sucks, not happy, hate technology. Every minute, every second that I spend in that place is a delay from me rebooting the computer. So the smartest choice is power down the machine, reboot it up as quickly as possible, get back in the session. So not sit in my feelings of, oh, you know, Patrick and Alexandria, and everybody's going to be so upset and they're going to, you know, they're disappointed or whatever, right? I mean, all of it is story. I could get lost in all of it. As a leader, your job is to remain calm and focused and breathe. Take those 3 deep breaths, reset yourself, and suddenly the time compression where you're feeling that pressure will lessen. Of course, all of the responsibilities are not going to magically disappear. You're still going to have to do that active, proactive triage and distinguish, this is more important than this. This we have to do first, then we will do this. If we never do this, is it really going to make that big of an impact to the customer, to the organization, to our bottom line? Whatever you're using as your benchmarks to determine what we do and in what order we do it in, you always want to return to those benchmarks. In the workshop, we won't have time to do it when we're all together, but I will give people a set of core value exercises. They're essential for you as a leader and then as a team to be on the same page so that you're using the same criteria to make those prioritized decisions. Because we've all been in a room, we've all been in a meeting or a workshop where somebody raises their hand and says, I think the first thing we should do is X. And maybe you audibly sigh, maybe people roll their eyes, but you're thinking, if we never did that, the project would still be successful. Right. Once you do these core value exercises, once everybody's on the same page, it becomes very easy, and again, it becomes very detached to return to the value. So it's not, I don't like that person, so even though it's a good idea, we're not going to proceed with it. Or I really like that person, it's a stupid idea, but we're gonna move that forward because I'm fond of them and I don't want to make them feel bad.
Mm,
It removes all of those kinds of feelings and allows us to be compassionate and kind, but also dispassionate and really prioritize with the greatest amount of clarity possible.
mm. I love this corollary that you're drawing between decluttering our kitchen or our closets, that it's a value proposition you're actually saying.
Yes.
That as we declutter the stuff that encumbers the physical stuff, that it is the manifestation of decluttering the mental aspect, which as leaders, you're saying, if we're going to lead an organization, our palette has to be clear.
Yeah.
That's the core of what I'm hearing you say, if that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. I mean, you set the example, and you don't have to be perfect. I mean, you can be perfectly imperfect, and still you would be foolish and misguided to think that, again, people are not observing how you move through time and space.
Right.
And so the more deliberate you can be, the more precise you can be, that sets the tone, and it calls out the best in everyone.
Mm.
Nobody's going to get to perfect. Everybody can get to excellent.
And I think it's something we should bear in mind. And we in our spa organizations, we run multi-level, multi-tiered organizations with very creative people, with people who may just be coming out of school and have no interest in what they're doing. So we're managing a wide range of personalities, generations, and experiences. And I think one thing that you said that resonated, I think it's going to resonate with our team, is that where our floor is as the leader, where our response is to all that the incoming is where the ceiling is for most of our teams. And how do we actually lead in that environment is the metric of our success.
Yeah.
A great question came in from Professor John, and he's asking, how do we declutter? And I just lost my feed here. It's one of those days with Professor John. Can you please send your question through again? Because I really want to, it was a great question and I want to make sure I get it right. So my next question is, oftentimes in our work, because we're managing multiple entities within our business, we're called upon to multitask. It's part of the job description, must be able to multitask.
Right. That's definitely one of the 200 lies. You can't multitask.
Yeah, please multitask. So what is your philosophy on multitasking? And do you think that it's a beneficial skill to develop?
No, I think it is not anybody's superpower. You cannot bake a cake and do open heart surgery at the exact same time. It's impossible. So you can tell yourself, I can talk on the phone and file some papers, and if you're really keyed into the conversation, you will probably spend more time filing papers than you need to.
Right.
And if you're really focused on the papers, you're not completely present for the conversation, in which case you might have to ask the person you're talking to. I lost that. Would you repeat that? I didn't get that.
Yeah.
We've all had that experience. They did a study at the University of London with 1,100 workers, specifically around electronic media. And they found that attempting to multitask with electronic media created a greater decrease in IQ than if you had not slept for 24 hours or if you were high on marijuana. So again, one of our 200 lies is, I'm firing on all cylinders. This is my superpower. I'm crushing it. And the reality is that somebody who just pulled an all-nighter or somebody who's high is actually functioning higher than you are when you're attempting to multitask. It immediately decreases your IQ by at least 10 points. And the brain science just tells us you can't do it. What you can do is sequentially shift rapidly between tasks, but your brain cannot do two complex tasks at the exact same time. Both of them are going to be diminished.
So how do we begin within our organizations and our businesses to shift the culture around this? Because it shows up in every job description that you see.
Of course.
Today. Must do 18 things at once and flag it.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it when, I mean, we have to look at the culture. If we have a culture, and part of what we'll be talking about at the conference is those 8 deadly time thieves, right? Interruptions, overcommitting, poor planning, multitasking, emails, meetings, social media, and procrastination. And so when we think about multitasking is definitely one of those 8 deadlies, and as is interruptions. And when we think about those in the context of our organizations, it's all about the culture, right? It's the culture that you set as a leader. If you're the leader or you're just part of the leadership team, we have to look at how pliable is the culture? Is the culture open to changing, or does the culture reward interruptions? Does it encourage interruptions? Are there sloppy boundaries? And do we like that? There is that sense of, I mean, we can have all the inspirational posters on the break room wall that we want. It's really walking the talk. And if it's okay to walk into somebody's office and say, hey, you got a minute, without knocking, without making an appointment, and without really evaluating, does this have to be said now? Does it have to be said now by me? Or could it wait? Right? And could you gang all of your questions and block some time out to answer all of the questions rather than, hey, got a second? Hey, got a second? Hey, got a second? I mean, if it's not a bottleneck for you to be able to complete your work, and if it were the only thing that you were working on, then clearly you can't proceed without getting an answer to the question. But if you have 17 other things you could be doing, why don't you do one of those until you can get my time, and then I'll answer all of your questions in one meeting, and then you can go back to doing your job.
Right.
So that we really just have to look at the culture and see, are we talking about it, or are we willing to, and it will be uncomfortable to have those boundaries to say, Patrick, I get that you think your hair's on fire, but in the scheme of what we're doing, super not critical. So I'm going to ask you to table this. Let's book a call for 4 o'clock this afternoon. I'll deal with this with you and 3 other things. Whatever you've got, bring them to me at 4 o'clock. From 4 to 4:30, I'm all yours. Right now, I'm working on something that the organization has deemed to be more important than this. So I love you, and I'm going to return to what I'm doing. Please go find something else to do of equal or greater value, and then we'll reconvene. And if that feels uncomfortable, if it feels awkward, and you are more interested in your own comfort than actually being in alignment with your values, you'll capitulate, right? You'll be a people pleaser. You'll fold. And people, again, they will observe that you don't have good boundaries, and they will take advantage of it, either in a good way or a bad way, right? I mean, they'll take advantage of it to move the business forward in spite of you as a leader. And if they are, if they have any narcissistic tendencies, if at all on a spectrum of sociopathology, they might use it to their advantage of like, oh, he's easily distracted and clearly has crappy boundaries. I can get away with anything I want as long as I approach him in this way, he'll fold every time.
You just said something that I hope everyone caught, because you just went by it real fast. I'm going to back up and we're going to go back to it a little bit. You just talked about, are you willing to move out of your comfort zone and test the values that you live with in order to be a better leader for your team and to set clear boundaries? I mean, you're diving into life stuff here,
Sure.
sort of beyond the sort of tactical things of, one task at a time, a scheduled meeting. And so I think what's really compelling about what you're saying is that you're asking us to look at where our own myths about who we are and our value systems lie in order to be better leaders, more present, cohesive leaders for our teams.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is kind of what wellness and well-being is about. How
You
are
would
you
think,
more,
right?
right, being more present in your goals, your life, your values?
Yeah, I mean, you're inviting your customers into this environment to get a respite from their hectic, busy lives. and to model alternative behaviors. I mean, I don't think we have to worry. I mean, in each of our businesses, I'm not going to run out of customers. Nobody who runs a spa, a wellness center is going to run out of clientele. You're offering something that they can't manifest on their own. Of course, they're going to return. And still, by modeling the best behavior and giving them the tools, the resources to make these changes sustainable, not you can only have this experience here, and then you go back to your crappy old way of doing things, and your only choice is to return to us, because then they'd have to move in literally to sustain it, which is not sustainable for you. You can't just have 180 people in residence who never leave, right? I mean, because then you have a whole new set of circumstances and challenges to deal with if they never went home after a week or 2 weeks or even a month, right? So we need to be able to give people the tools to do the deep work so that they make those kinds of sustainable, lasting changes in their lives. Again, if what we're trying to do is heal the world, when we heal anyone, we're in essence healing everyone, and everything is elevated. So yes, we're doing deep work. The superficial benefits are you'll never misplace your keys, your wallet, your mobile phone, your bag again. You'll always know where things are. You'll show up on time. You won't double book yourself. You won't feel stressed out. You won't feel overwhelmed. All of those are superficial consequences or results of doing this work. The deep results are that you'll have a sense of serenity and calm that will emanate out of you. You'll be a magnet for everybody. Will want to spend time with you because you are the embodiment of peace and serenity and calmness and deliberateness and intention.
People have asked for the magical 8 again, and I'm going to say it's already dropped into the chat. So if you guys scroll through the chat, you'll see it. Interruptions,
overcommitting, multitasking, poor planning, meetings, email, social media, procrastination.
There you go. You guys got that? Okay. It's in the chat also.
Magic 8.
The magic 8, the magical 8. Let me tell you. So I think a hot button for a lot of us is emails. Can you talk to us about how I don't even answer my emails anymore, which is so bad unless it's like, but how do we address the drowning in emails that we're all living with right now?
Well, you have to prioritize what you're going to answer.
Mm-hmm.
I will obviously climb into this in greater depth during the session at the conference. What I would say is the number one tip that I can give you is do not read your email if you don't have the time to reply to it at the same time.
Oof.
So if you don't have the time to respond to it, at best, you're just wasting the time reading it, because then you're going to have to reread it when you do have time to answer it. You think, again, it's understandable. So there's no judgment from me when I say this, right? And you think in the moment that you're scanning for the things that matter and figuring out what you don't need to pay attention to. The reality is you're just wasting the time, because if you don't have the time to actually reply to it, you've just wasted that time. And worst case scenario, you read something that you get snagged by. Now you can't actually return to what you were going to be doing because you're in this emotional little bubble of upset. So now you have to process the upset. We're interrupted by communications technology every 10 minutes, and on average, it takes 23 minutes to recover from one interruption. So again, very simple math, 2 interruptions, 2 recoveries, as much as an hour lost, except that in that hour, you're interrupted 4 more times. So you can see why these interruptions stack up. And by the end of the day, you get to the end of your day and you're like, oh my God, I was crazy busy today. I got nothing done. All I did was react to things hitting me in the face. And then you'll tell yourself another one of your 200 lies. I'm going to stay late and do my real work now, right? Everybody's done bothering me. I'm just going to spend a couple of extra hours to get caught up. Or maybe I'll come in early Saturday morning. Nobody will know. I'll get a couple of hours in and I'll set myself up for next week. That again is not a sustainable solution to a problem.
I mean, you're talking radical transformation of the culture. Let's just call it what it is. Let's just call it what it is. There's a great question that came in from Margaret Laura, who's from New York, and it's a practical application question. She asks, how do you tactfully approach a team member who carries the busy cadence when you know what's on their plate and they should not truly be overwhelmed? Are there tips to share to guide those people? The I'm busy person, and you know they're really not busy
Right.
on your team.
So depending on how sensitive they are, you could possibly have a real kind of come to Jesus conversation with them, like a loving come to Jesus conversation. Or you could just do it during a team meeting and say, hey, I know that we all at various times default to, oh my God, I'm so busy. How about if we try other language choices to describe this? And why don't we come up with some common ways that we can each individually support each other and support ourselves in making both different word choices and prioritizing so that we don't feel busy and then we don't say busy. So, right, I mean, if you can have a real conversation with the person without them feeling confronted, then you can. If they're too sensitive, then it's not going to serve you to have that kind of a management conversation with them. You want to have it in a general conversation. You want to hope that they get it. And what you can do is, if it's a small enough group, you can engage in a couple of exercises of like, let's role play. Let's pretend we're meeting each other in the kitchen. And what else could you say besides, oh, I'm so busy? What are some alternatives? And make everybody do it, including the person that's really the reason why we're doing the exercise in the first place.
Thank you for the extra meeting, non-busy person.
Yeah.
How do we handle, what is your perspective on, excuse me, the impact of computers, cell phones, and social media in our cluttered minds today? It's a drag, I would imagine.
Sure. Help me with the question.
So I think it's more under your rubric of digital distractions and how I mean, I guess you could say don't answer your phone, but sometimes it's not that simple for people, or spend less time on your computer. But I think this is a real albatross for people, that they're sort of bound to, their phones, the computers here, and you have all of these distractions coming in, and all you're trying to do is like write the forecast for the following week so you can order your fruit for your lounge area. So how are they supposed to manage that?
Well, I do believe in isolating yourself so that you can concentrate and work uninterrupted for periods of time. I believe in blocking times on my calendar in which times I put the phone on airplane and I get offline. And so if I'm writing, I'm not distracted by pop-ups. I'm not distracted by notifications. I'm not surfing the web. If I have to go on the web because I need a piece of information, I go on the web and then I close the window. I don't keep the window open. So these are all, they're behavioral changes that we have to build the muscle, just like working out in the gym. You're not going to bench press 220 pounds the first time you pick up a barbell.
Right.
So it's bringing your expectations in alignment with your experience, that this is the first time I'm going to not only am I going to turn my phone upside down, but I'm actually going to turn my phone off. and I'm going to notify everybody. Like if you report to other people, you can either have it, if you have shared calendars, you can have it say like this, I'm going under and I'm unavailable for the next 90 minutes. Or you can notify your superiors. You can also notify your direct reports and say, again, unless the building's on fire, please don't come into my office or come to my cubicle, or take yourself off site. You know, you don't have to go to a Starbucks, but maybe you go to the lounge, or you go someplace where you're not in the flow of traffic, so you can work uninterrupted for 30, 60, 90 minutes. I would say also one of the techniques that I often encourage people to do is use a timer so that you don't have to keep track of the time. If you have to dedicate a certain amount of bandwidth to monitoring your progress, you're not all in the task. So it would be better off to let the machine do the heavy lifting. Set the timer for 15 minutes and then work uninterrupted for 15 minutes. You'd be amazed at what you can get done in 15 minutes if there are no interruptions and distractions.
Well, that's to your point. That's why the Saturday morning works, because no one's coming in at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to have you look over something that they've written.
But that's not sustainable, and they're not paying you to work on Saturday.
Exactly.
So you ought to be able to do your real work during your real work hours.
So true.
So
a lot of the conversation thus far has been about sort of tactics of organization, mindset, operational pieces. And I wonder, what role do you think sleep, exercise, and diet play in decluttering our mind and time management?
Well, I'm not the first person to say that we need to get adequate rest, exercise, and eat decent food. So all of those things impact your ability to stay focused, particularly if you're anywhere on that neurodivergent spectrum. If you're already prone to easily distracting yourself or being distracted, if you have any challenges staying focused for long periods of time, you also then, if those are your circumstances, you need to find out where your sweet spot is. If 5 minutes is all you've got before you disappear, 5 minutes is it. And work in 5-minute blocks of time and just keep stacking those 5 minutes on top of each other. You can hack your biology to take what might be perceived as a deficit or as an inconvenience and leverage it so that it becomes certainly not your superpower, but not a hindrance to your ability to be productive.
Okay. This has been amazing. This window into what's going to be happening with you in Phoenix in 55 days, 56 days. Before we see you in person, are there any sort of key insights, takeaways you'd like for our viewers and listeners today to carry with them until they see you in person?
Pay attention, observe yourself dispassionately, right? I mean, not as if you liked yourself and cared for yourself and not were the judgy, shamey, mean police person of yourself, right? I mean, as if you were your friend and you were actually trying to support yourself in getting better. So observe how you talk to yourself. I mean, most of those 200 lies are never uttered. They're just garbage that we tell ourselves. So pay attention to how you talk to yourself, how you coach yourself through the day. I direct myself throughout the day. Let's go do this. Let's go make the bed. Let's go do the dishes. Let's do this. Let's work on that paper. Let's read that book. Let's go do this. And I mean, I don't have multiple personality disorder. Not that there's anything wrong with it if you did, but I don't. And I spend most of my time alone working at home. So I talk to myself and coach myself from task to task to task so that it's fun, it's motivating, and it's also directive. I'm not often sitting like, what should I do next? What should I do next? First of all, everything's on my calendar, so I'm moving from appointment to appointment to appointment. Even if the appointments, I build buffers into my calendar, so I never attend back-to-back meetings. And I understand that some of you do so far. You won't after we're together in 55 days. we'll talk about how you can shift that. So I mean, I think the kindest thing that you can do, and perhaps the most powerful thing you can do, is just observe yourself dispassionately but accurately, and start to recognize, oh, this is how I do things, and it's working well enough. It's working amazing. It's not working so well, and I don't have anything else in my toolkit, but this is an opportunity for me to find something better, as opposed to just same old, unexamined, and telling yourself the story that this is the best I can hope for, right? This is an impossible job. Nobody could do this job, and I'm doing the best that I can. You are doing the best that you can today with the limited resources and skills and tools that you have, but it might not be your best.
Mm. So I think that's a great work for us to think about, so that when we show up in Phoenix in 55 days, if we've done that sort of observation and analysis of what we do without any judgment, is what you're saying, it's going to make what you're talking about in real time even more resonant for us if we sort of come in with a baseline of understanding of what you're talking about. Andrew, I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful, jam-packed. I cannot wait to hear more from you and your ISPA conference knowledge builder session on day two. Day two, everybody, please be there. I also want to say a special thank you to our sponsor, Spot Finder. We're always so grateful. And please be sure to stop by the Expo Hall in Phoenix and say hello to them. Our e-gift card winner is our good friend, Amber Bray. And as a reminder, this session will be available right on Amber on our on-demand learning center at experienceispa.com. Andrew, thank you again. And thank you all for attending, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.